All right, folks, let's have a great meeting. I call the January 25th, 2023 Bremerton City Council study session to order. The study session is open for the public to listen in, but there'll be no opportunities for input. The content of these items is subject to change and no action is anticipated. Any of the items approved for action by the council tonight will be placed on the February 1st, 2023 City Council meeting agenda or is otherwise determined. All right, so up first, we have briefings on agenda bill items, and we'll start with Gunnar Fredrickson is here to present item 1 and item 2. Please take it away.
Thank you, City Council, for the time tonight to discuss these two projects. First one up is a design contract with Parametrix for the Francis Street outfall improvements. And I'm not sure if everybody knows where that is. On the map here, as you can see, we're right off of Kitsap Way on Kitsap Lake itself. This is a former boat launch area where we do quite a bit of the vegetation removal. We still use it for that vegetation removal when we're working in Kitsap Lake itself. Next slide, please. This project was identified during the Kitsap Lake Safe Routes to School project. Both the line and the outfall here are under capacity as flows have increased now that we've got a little bit more of a storm system up above. The SRTS project could not address this issue because it was not identified in the original scope for the federally funded project, so they couldn't add it in. So we're going back to go ahead and correct this. And what we're looking at, the picture there is the existing outfall. As you can tell, it's underneath the adjacent property owner's fence and not in the greatest of shape. We want to build a brand new parallel outfall and also to build on the Kitsap Lake project to put some water quality treatment in as well when we do that at the end of the street there. Next slide, please. So what we have is a 30% design review, permit submittal, May 2023. We're hopeful that if we build the outfall such that we don't actually touch the lake itself and use the ramp, that we will not have to go into a full core permit and run afoul of the permitting. 60 and 90% reviews in the next few months. And then look towards advertising for bids early next year with construction next summer. And our current contract amount for Parametrix to do this work for us is $99,600, and our total project is about $500,000, or is $500,000. And that is the first project. Is any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Fredrickson? I'll go first on as Public Works Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fredrickson. Just minor discrepancy. You have 99.6 as the for this portion of the title, and in the agenda it's 101.5.
I'm sorry, I might have grabbed an older version when I was doing it. I'll make sure I get that corrected.
Yeah, everybody knows prices have gone up. So when you, Public Works, were doing the safe routes to school for Kitsap Lake, you were increasing the impervious area, yeah?
That would be correct. It would add added sidewalk.
Okay, not an engineer, didn't go to engineering school, but when I'm designing a wetland where there's going to be increased impervious area, that leads to increased flow, and you start looking at the outfall, and I was wondering why that didn't happen here.
I can't speak to that. I wasn't involved with the Kitsap Lake Safe Routes to School project.
Okay, do you know who was that done in-house or was it a contract? I see.
That project was done with that project was done with the same consultant that we're using now. That consultant actually identified the need to take care of it during design, but unfortunately, because they couldn't revise the funding, because of the funding, they couldn't revise the project to be able to put it in the scope.
So Parametrix saw the problem and didn't have enough money to hurl at it. And this is an opportunity to not only fix the outfall dimension, but also to add water quality filtration.
It wasn't a question of money. It's just that with federal projects, you get very specific and they have what they call APE requirements that where you're supposed to do your cultural and resource reviews and so forth. And if it's not in the original scope of work, they typically don't allow you to add it in.
If you wanted to put down a toothpick on the edge of that road, that would not be allowable type thing.
If you want the feds to pay for it, no, that's correct.
Okay.
Just to add a little bit more,
Thank you.
just to add just a little bit more to that. I mean, it's very typical, like every time when we pursue funding for projects, we do that before we have design. And so there are things that we learn in completing the design of the projects, you know, because that's what you do in design is you look at all the downstream impacts and things like that. And that was the case in this case. We secured funding, then in the course of completing the design, identified additional scope. And then as Gunnar explained, you know, we're coming now in order to address it because we couldn't do it with the project. So it's really actually very common. And again, it's based on the way that we secure funding for these projects when we're securing funding for design and construction.
Director Nucky. Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. I really appreciate you, plural, taking the time to fully explain that to council. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Any other questions on this contract? Seeing none, are folks fine with consent agenda for this item for next week? All right, seeing all head nods. Before we move on to A2, I forgot to mention, Eric is out on travel and is Michael on Zoom? Last second, he wasn't feeling well, so he was not going to be able to attend in person at least. Okay. I think it's just for transparency. All right, next up is A2. Take it away.
Yes, thank you. With this amendment, and this is number 3, and Pine Road Basin, as you know, we are currently in construction with what we're pretty much calling phase 1 right now. This adds more budget and scope to our project to be able to get us to the finish line. And what we have going on, if I can, Mike. Just to give you a little history, the project was originally scoped and executed back almost 4 years ago now, in 2019 for about $420,000. With Amendment 1, the project has seen some significant scope creep. Project 1, we found we had a flooding issue up on Eagle Avenue. So we added scope to the project in just over a year later for $50,000. And then amendment number 2, there was a discussion, well, Eagle Avenue is in such poor shape. Let's go ahead and repave it, reconstruct it. And then, oh, by the way, we're in the Armin Jar Elementary School walking radius. So let's go ahead and get that sidewalk put in on Robin while we're there. And it's kind of a project that's been snowballing a little bit. Again, scope originally probably might have looked for a little bit more. With this project as well, once we took the funding, we took a funding deadline for construction, and that is 9/6/2023, which is next year. We have requested an extension, and I'll go into the reasoning for that here in just a moment. We're planning on having the work for phase 1 completed by that date, but our phase 2, which is being held up right now, will be taking more time. The in-water work window as well for Stevenson Creek had to be completed by October 22nd, 2022. And it's a little unusual for us to get an HPA with such a tight deadline. We received the HPA in May and basically got told we had to have the project done by October. Next slide, please. So what amendment number 3 adds to the project now, again, speaking back to that permitting issue, there has been rule changes at the federal level as to how they treat these projects, especially if you're near shore. So we submitted the application back in, check my notes here. We submitted the JARPA to the Corps back in February of 2021. So we're coming up on 2 years of having the application in. We were having issues with the Corps and finding communication with them. So last February, we actually separated into two projects, the freshwater work, so we could complete the work on the inlet and the outfall for Stevenson Creek by the required time in the HPA, and then have been allowing the outfall down at Lebo and Sheridan Road on its own. We also had late design revisions. The Tribe and Fish and Wildlife didn't like the way we designed the outfall at Sheridan Road, and was almost a complete redesign. And so what we have on this amendment is a total of about 188,000. 103,000 is for the second PS&E or the construction package to be able to build that outfall on at Lebo and Sheridan. And if I can point out here on that outfall, it's probably not real clear, but you can see that line right there. That is supposed to be a true vertical line. The outfall is actually collapsing in and separated, and there's a separation at the top of the pipe right there. So this thing is in pretty poor shape. The picture below is actually our new outfall that we did the redesign on, and that is at full flow during that big storm that we had in December. There's a little fish weir over here. It completely overtopped the levee. Next slide, please. And so our breakdown for this amendment number 3, we now have two projects. We have the Pine Road Basin Marine outfall design work, 12-month duration, advance the design from the 60% that we stopped back last February, and get into 100% bid package, CM support for bidding and construction, and this is about $103,000. For us to be able to get the project out the door, we did have some work done ahead of this, and I apologize for that. We have not been real timely on this, and I'll go into some of the reasons of that here in a minute. But with the design revisions, we're addressing the design comments from the Fish and Wildlife and the Tribe. The additional design review that was not included on the original contract, additional design and geotechnical issues, and some other issues that were with it to be able to get out to add. And what we had originally was when we came to this, the consultant actually was asking us for, or came to a cost of about 172,000 for this additional work. We negotiated this down so that it's just under 86,000 is what we actually owe them. Next slide, please. So here's just a kind of a quick, short abbreviated timeline. Again, it was last year, February, that the Corps recommended we split the project, and that they said that they would be able to get us a permit if we did so for the upland work or the Sheridan outfall. The consultant noted that it was out of scope work, but continued to work. We received the Corps permit the next month. Fish and Wildlife finally accepted the outfall design, and we received the HPA actually 3 days after we went out to add, which is typically not what we like to do. We like to have permits in hand before we go to add, but we were under the gun to be able to get this to the contractor. The notice to proceed to the contractor was given on July 14th. The fish window opened July 15th. So we were asking the consultant for that cost and scope for the redesign. They were busy, we were busy. We didn't actually get it until September. Then it was about middle of September. We had a number of iterations to get the costs down, and we finally reached agreement with them by the end of October, at which point I scheduled the amendment for our Public Work Committee and got it into schedule so that we're here today. And again, I apologize for this portion of this amendment coming in late, but we were in a time crunch. And
Thank you so much for the detail and the transparency. Definitely appreciated. So this went through Public Works Committee. Any questions on this? I'll look to Anna first.
Thank you. Okay, so first, I do not recall, nor did I see in the minutes such a detailed or discussion of this of either of these projects during the Public Works Committee. Is that my memory faulty and the minutes are?
No, I just thought that since this was going in front of council, this would be a good one to be able to provide that additional detail if there were questions for the group.
Okay. I had a couple of questions on this one. One was, I know you guys have a tremendous soil map of Bremerton. It's really a lovely thing, but it didn't reveal, that there was bedrock at the Stephenson Canyon.
No, those soil maps are not the most accurate. They're actually part of the old USC and GS, and we did not have that knowledge. We knew there was bedrock that was exposed about 200 feet downstream of the new outfall. We actually have an 8-inch water main that's lying on top of that bedrock going across the creek.
Okay.
So there are places where the bedrock is exposed, but then there's also places right now with the new inlet at the bottom. We've already gotten about 12 inches of material deposited right in front of it just from these last storms. And we're not exactly sure where it's coming from, but there's something up there eroding.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. It would be wonderful if all things could be known, but sadly.
and it's always a challenge when we get into these construction projects. We never know what's underground until we get opening up and find out what's there.
Okay. I have a couple of more questions. Okay. All right.
Yes.
One was, GFW and the tribe at the 90% design meetings, were concerned about, I can't remember the technical term, but they wanted the falling water to have a dissipated impact, have less, what's the right term for that?
Correct. They wanted something that dissipated the energy.
Okay.
And so that's how the impact basin design came about. And it's actually kind of neat. The pipes empty into and basically face a solid concrete wall that's about 2 feet thick. And that actually drops the water down. And then with the levee, that would be a good term for it. It spreads that flow over as you saw in the one picture.
And here I'm truly just asking, what was the glitch that caused like they felt that their comments at the 60% hadn't been incorporated, which is one of the reasons for the size of this amendment, the cost of this.
We didn't really get a good feel from them. Sometimes they're a little late to the party with their comments, and it's unfortunate. And it was the same with the Corps. We just have not been getting really timely responses back on these projects. So we have to build a little extra time in on them, and we ran right up to the limit on this one.
I beg your pardon. Yes. Okay. I'm not going to even start talking about the Corps. Okay. My final question on this is, there was a lot about the extreme slope of, I think, Phil or Robin, one of those two, where you decided to put in where you are putting in ADA ramps, and because of the road slope, you were like basically going to warp the roadway.
Correct. And what we try to do is we'll match on the arterial streets. We don't like to warp the street because it, drivers. But on the lower speed residential streets, we will warp the road. Otherwise, we have to do what we call a maximum extent feasible. And we have to document why we built it that way. And typically they don't like us doing that. So.
Okay. And you've already done all the calculations to make sure that the warped roadway is ADA compliant, I'm sure.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I have no further questions, except I just, with the council's indulgence, like to go, I'm actually not leaping on Public Works. I think Public Works has done a really good job here. I'm just asking like the questions that occur to me. Thank you, Mr. Frederickson, for your very complete answers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. Okay, so this must have been a very confusing process. I know you've done your best to try to explain it to us, but this timeline absolutely helps. So I'm still a little confused by it all. But basically, so we have 187,915 that we need to cover, that we need to make an amendment for two purposes. And one of them you said was because we had to do a redesign. And again, which part did we have to redesign?
That would be the outfall that you saw,
Outfall.
the second picture that you saw, that is the redesigned outfall.
So is the new one there now?
Yes, that's
Oh,
correct. That is the new
okay,
one.
so
That
that's
is the
my,
new one.
that's my neighborhood. So I normally don't go down, that's over by the other little park. So like if I was to walk from the boat ramp to the other little park, then I would see that outflow.
No, the picture that I have of that outfall that is on the presentation is for the one that's just south of Sheridan Road.
Okay,
We still haven't gotten the core
Right.
permit for the other outfall, but we're hopeful. We did ask the Public Works Trust Board for an extension on the grant.
okay,
Unfortunately, they only gave us a 3-month extension and that amendment is circulating. Hopefully we'll have it soon. But the hope is that the Corps also came back in November and actually told us about a new process.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure they have their reasons, but how frustrating to be in the middle of the process and then then the rules change on you, right?
Correct, and that's
Okay.
one of the problems that we have is we have this basically moving target that we're trying to design to and it keeps getting moved out. A lot of this, and it's, if you're interested, it's called the Salish Sea Nearshore Programmatic.
Sailor Sea Nearshore Programmatic,
Yes.
got it. I am
SSNS.
interested. I mean, and so this is Washington State then, because Salish Sea is specific to Washington State. So this is,
Correct, this is
But through
being
Army Corps?
derived from the whole 6 PPD Quinon, the tire rubber. And having to address that.
Okay.
those-
okay. Okay, so there's a stop work right now, at several of is that why there's a stop work over at, Stephenson Avenue where the new outflow is?
No, it's been a weather suspension.
Weather suspension,
Yes, they
okay, so that's
started
not
work
the reason,
again
not
this
the,
week.
this reason here. And wait, I might be done, let me just double check here. Was Eagle Avenue already, I remember Eagle Avenue, it was a pretty crappy road, especially around that curve.
Yep.
I remember walking it, and so has that been, that was repaved as well, or it's going to be repaved?
It's going to be repaved. We have a 12-inch storm line going all the way up Robin Avenue.
Yeah.
And then the new storm main that'll convey most of the conveyance from Wheaton Way, which is where it's coming from, is gonna go up Eagle Avenue, and then we reconstruct all of Eagle Avenue. And we actually extend that line right up to Dib Avenue,
Yeah,
just in case we want to be able to extend further storm system north.
this may not be germane, and that's okay, and so, Council President, you can cut me off if it's not. But just thinking about, that area, which is opened up now for traffic, so I can get to my favorite coffee shop now, easier. Cause that's important, I guess, but no, I've been seeing all the materials, all the, supplies on the church lot. And I'm wondering if we're providing any compensation to that church for the space that we're taking up, or if they're generously allowing us to put this giant equipment there.
We actually don't supply laydown yards for the contractor, but what we'll do is if there is a property owner that may be interested, we will put their contact information and the contractor makes their own deal.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
contract, that's within their contract too. Hopefully they're working something, because they're taking up their big giant soccer fields, so and there's a lot of equipment right there, I was noticing. And then, I think that for now, that's all the questions I have. I just looking at a map here, there's just so much concrete all around there, I can almost understand why there's, I mean, it's a lot more complex than just being, having so much concrete there, but I'm glad that there's a lot of work being done in this area to prevent the flooding in the neighborhoods over there. Thank you, that's all.
Germaine question to ask the impacts of approving this contract on the local community, so. All good. Any other questions from Mr. Frederickson? Quinn?
Thank you. Thank you. Is it Mr. Frederickson? Am I
I'll butcher
pronouncing
it.
that correctly? Okay,
Sure.
excellent. I'm less concerned about the minutia, although I appreciate there is concern for the minutia. But for the 187,915 contract modification price, where are those funds coming from? That's what I'm-
It is still being covered by the loan amount we have available from the loan to be able to take care of it for now.
What is the APR on that? Is it still the?
The
sorry, the loan amount?
The loan amount. The interest rate was like 1..
Okay, so this was contracted a while ago. Okay, excellent. And is there any federal funding?
No, this is entirely being done by the Public Works Trust Board loan.
Excellent. Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? Yes, if nothing from Denise, Anna, go for it.
Just a really quick question, the next time you, Public Works, put something in the packet, if you could provide a map for every one of them, that'd be really helpful.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to be clear, following up on Quinn's question, no budget modification here needed. This is already in Public Works, so. Excellent. All right, folks, is consent good with this? Does anyone objects? Seeing no objection, all right. Put this on consent, and thanks again for the detail and the transparency and really walking us through the complicated modification. All right, next up, we've got Mr. Chris Montner to present items 3 and 4, A3 and A4, and A3, starting with that one, is contract modification agreement number 2 with Atwork Commercial Enterprises LLC for landscaping maintenance and services. Welcome. Yeah, red button. There we go.
Good evening. I am here to present the contract modification agreement number 2 with Outwork Commercial Enterprises LLC. Outwork Commercial Enterprises is a city's landscape maintenance and services provider under city contract agreement number 6244. They maintain 24 city properties for many different city departments and divisions. They have held this contract since 2021. This agreement was established for a 5-year term with an end date of June 30th, 2026. Included within this proposed contract modification is 2 changes. One is the addition of 3 new locations, and the other is a service rate increase. Staff had identified 3 city properties that require landscape maintenance and services. These are Fire Station 2 at 5005 Kitsap Way, Fire Station 3 at 3031 Olympus Drive, and at the city-owned landscape areas located at 606 Burwell Street. These 3 new areas are shown on the landscape location site maps and marked as locations R, S, and T. Also included within this contract modification agreement is an 8.9% increase to the costs of the landscape services, as well as a general clarification to the agreement language, which was not clearly defined within the original contract scope of work in the specifications section. You can see the supplemental documents highlighted showing this. This contract modification will address and provide for any future service cost increases as allowed by the contract. The proposed service cost increase was negotiated with the contractor from discussions of increased operational costs, landscape labor, and fuel. These discussions occurred in December of 2021 and again in March of 2022, with hopes that the conditions would improve. This increase in service cost meets the original intent of the base contract. The service cost increase amount will be split among the city departments and divisions who are responsible for the landscape service areas. The service cost increase proposed is approximately $9,100 annually. I will answer any questions you may have on this item.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montner. Any questions, council? Yeah, go for it, Anna. Yep.
Just because this was something we discussed in Public Works, but I'll be brief and then defer to you. One of the things that came up, and I'm addressing the missing Eric Younger right now, was that this is a Bellevue-based firm. And while there are local employees, please correct me anytime I'm wrong, Mr. Montner. While there are local employees who carry out this landscaping, the profits go to Bellevue. That was one thing. Another thing is, if you'll look in your packet, you'll see that Mr. John Song, is just asking for this increase. And on a 5-year contract, there is highlighted later in this packet the fact that the 2-year extensions will of course involve a cost of living increase or a consumer price index increase. So far still, okay, yes. So I think that this is an inappropriate use of taxpayer funds. And were Counselor Younger here, I think he would agree with me because he did so during the meeting. So that was really what I had to say. I mean, I have a larger meta comment, but I'm not going to take up everybody's time with that right now. Is that, yeah, okay. So I'm going to yield to Vice President.
All
Chan.
right, Jennifer.
Thanks. Well, that's good information. I was gonna ask, well, first of all, well, now I want to know about the bid process for this company because we must have a bid process for it, but, I'm actually surprised that, I mean, that we're not using, would we not use our local, our services with the city for this type of landscaping? Do we not have capacity? Do you have the answer to that one?
We do not have that capacity, within parks or within the general facilities, group.
Okay,
It was, all of these landscape areas were looked at, in detail, before this bid had gone out originally, to multiple local and other, landscape companies. And at that time, it was shown that streets, parks, or general facilities could not support all of this landscape to the
Got it.
attention it needed.
okay, thank you so much. And so, I mean, it was an open bid process and this company was the lowest bidder.
It
And-
was, yes.
Okay,
I did want to speak a little bit more on that. I gathered, or got more specific information since the Public Works Committee meeting. The headquarters is in Bellevue. They do employ local workers and hold landscape maintenance contracts with the city of Port Orchard, Mason County PUD, WASDOT, and many other municipalities. So they specialize in kind of city type projects and landscape work. But they were the lowest bid at the time of the bid. We did get, I think 6 or 7 bids received, and they were solicited per our city policies and procedures. And we did have S&S Landscape, which is the one that is on 6th Street. They were second, or I think they were third, and we had another local one that was second. But per our bid policies and procedures and state codes that we follow, we did go with the low bid of at work commercial landscaping after references and everything were thoroughly checked.
don't we have some kind of provision for accepting a higher bid at a certain percentage if it's a local company or if it's BIPOC owned?
We give Director Riley the chance to jump in here if that's appropriate.
Oh, yeah, so there is provisions in the code that talk about buy local, but it is preceded by what Chris Monitor said at getting lowest bid, going out and doing a competitive bid process trumps that. I think there's conversation, looks like maybe at the retreat to discuss some buy local options, but right now they're following the bid process as set forth in the BMC.
In the BNC. Thank you. Okay, that's it. I appreciate. That's all I have.
Other questions before I go back to Anna Quinn?
This issue came up multiple times, and I'm sorry this directed, but since I've been on council since 2021, this has come up quite a bit, and so maybe I'm turning to legal on this one, but we have to follow the lowest responsive bid, right? That's and that by statute, I believe. And so there's nothing that we're going to be able to do as council. And one other question that I had is, as far as like determining a population group based on protected class characteristics, is there any, I would assume that might be violative of Title VI or?
Yes, Arlene.
There's a really long answer to that, and I can provide more information at a later date. I did go to a training on that issue earlier this year through the International Municipal Lawyers Association.
Awesome. If you have any CLEs to send me on that one, I would love to.
I will
look
do
at
that.
Great, thanks a lot. So to Councilmember Mockler's point, and Councilmember Munder's point, I think that there is some price gouging that's going on. I think everybody has kind of given into this, narrative that, CPI is off the chain, and then companies are kind of really digging into that and bringing up profits. Sometimes unnecessarily. We're seeing that in really large corporations. Is there any documentation of, what kind of costs have gone up based on this contract that the contractor has submitted for us?
Just in discussions that we had with John Song, the contractor, of fuel costs, labor problems, and then also just materials in general for landscaping, services. So
Sure, yeah, and I think this council is pretty reasonable and probably wants to strike a balance between like realizing that there's been a lot of inflation lately, but also not wanting to use taxpayer money just to enrich companies that might not want to be enriched. So I think it might be a great one for general businesses. I'd like to hear other folks' opinions about it. And if there was a way to get any sort of documentation, that would be helpful. So
yes, I will get with John and get that put together. But again, it is stemming from past discussions. It isn't like he just came up with that number. It was thought out and it was researched on his end as well as past discussions that we had of his problems that he was encountering.
absolutely. And I think by the time it reaches our desk, like it's gone through quite a few eyes that are much more sophisticated than ours. But I think from our standpoint of wanting to be good stewards of the taxpayer money, like just some documentation or, some income sheets or balance sheets would be great. Thanks a lot.
Niece has a question. Let me jump in my line. And so is it BMC or is it state code that makes us go with the lowest bidder with no exceptions?
It's embedded in both. It's in both.
Oh,
So our BMC
it's our
references the
BMC.
state
Okay.
RCW.
Okay, so yeah, that'll be great to talk at the retreat and see if there's an ordinance we can craft in the future to address that.
And just
Sure, go ahead.
Just to clarify, RCW is the revised code of
Right.
Washington, which is state law, which trumps our laws.
Oh.
So
Maybe I misheard. Did you say RCW or BMC? You said RCW.
It's referenced in both. It's in our BMC, but the BMC references the revised code of Washington.
Thank you for clarifying that. Oh, never mind.
Thank you, Councilmember
We,
Denny.
yes, thank you for clarifying that. We cannot change the RCW. So, 1 second, then I'll go, yeah, let's go back around. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. So we, fair enough. We'll discuss that retreat as far as the high policy and see if there's anything on the city side we can do. The other thing just to clarify is the total amount of the contract there's the cost of living increase is not factored into that yet. And let me say this the right way. I want to make sure we're not looking at the lowest bid, but that may increase with cost of living over time versus somebody else who doesn't have the cost of living increase. This contract may be renegotiated at a higher rate, and at that point, we could go back out to bid again, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and the extensions that Anna was talking about are negotiated or not even entertained, and then could go back to bid at that time of the contract end of 2026.
Okay. Quick question, Zalt. It sounds like we have a request for general business, but yeah, Anna, go for it.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of general business. Is it a long answer to ask, some contracts are not just lowest bid, but lowest responsible bid?
For sure, Attorney Fennell.
Thank you.
A number of contracts that we bid, all the directors have taken our turn saying this was the lowest responsible bid. In other words, it's not a bunch of teenagers like saying, absolutely, we'll take care of your landscaping for $125 a year, not to worry. Would not be a responsible bid. Just to use a little reductio ad absurdum there. So my question is, are all contracts by statute allowed to include the responsible clause or not?
Yes, I think so. I'm trying to think of a certain exemption to that, but. Right, so the responsible in responsive, like we've had bid protests, which are lawsuits that are filed, they're injunctions, they go really fast. It's a 2-week lawsuit where a person who might have been the lowest bidder, but they did not comply with the bid criteria. And so we have to set theirs aside. But then they dispute that they didn't comply with the criteria and they file an injunction trying to keep us from signing the contract with the lowest responsible bidder. And so when a person has done everything that they're supposed to do and they're the lowest, that's when they get the contract. If they're not the lowest or they didn't follow all of the bid criteria, that's when they don't. I hope that answers the question. And I'm not sure, there might be some circumstances, like I can think of it, that I could probably find out, like very obscure things, but yes, that's generally the rule. And I think Tom's gonna come up here, especially with regard to public works stuff.
Go for direction.
Sorry, I'm just sitting here, I just want to talk. So responsible bidder, just an example of that, right? We have bid forms that are required to be completed. A big one's the bid bond. You have to have a bid bond, and it's not uncommon. Like every other year, we'll get a bid. It doesn't include a bond. We can't accept it, right? So that would be a non-responsive bid, right? In some projects that are more complex, like say you've got like painting of a reservoir, which is actually fairly technical, will require bidders with their bid to provide documentation of experience of completing similar projects. And if you've got a house painter, and it's happened, that wants to coat a reservoir, all right, that they're not responsible because they don't have the experience that's required in the contract. So that's so a couple examples of when those are rejected, right?
Yes, Jennifer.
Director Nucky, while you're up here, can you talk to me about what you know about the women and minority-owned businesses, the procurement process? There's at the state level, there's a way to become certified, and how do we access that list?
Well, the part about becoming certified, I'm not really sure how that works. That's managed at the state level, the Office of Minority Women-Owned Businesses, right? But on our federal contracts, it's very common for us to have goals that are established for both, professional services and then also construction. And so we advertise that with the project, and then they have to provide confirmation that they're meeting those goals. But as far as getting certified, I really don't know. But they have one thing I would want to say that I just learned about here like last year is that on the OMWB website, there's a way to link contracts to that to make sure that you're getting the best outreach possible. And I know that I talked to the city engineer about making sure that we're engaging on that to cast as broad a net as possible.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I want to stay in the germane, but I just wanted to know, I am curious about that for the future. So maybe we'll talk about that at the retreat too.
Perfect. Yeah, broader topic, but good questions. Okay, so it sounds like this is going to general business. If there are no further questions now, I can talk about them more then. And I'll just close with, I got a tour of the fire stations the other day, and I know when call volume was less, they used to have some more extra time to go do their maintenance, and now they're so flat out that they can't get out there and do it. And I heard that from them. So if folks out there are asking, why can't the firefighters do this when they have off time, they're slammed. So cool. Yeah, that's it. All right, so this will go on general business, and moving on to item 4. Mr. Montner, you're up again with acceptance of Washington State Department of Commerce Local and Community Projects Program Grant for the Bremerton Library HVAC Replacement Project.
Yes, thank you. So I am here for that grant approval for the Bremerton Library HVAC system. That is for the downtown Martin Luther King Library. It has an old, problematic and inadequate heating system and has no cooling and very little ventilation to the building. This grant will cover the project costs for the new HVAC system for heating, cooling, and a dedicated outside air ventilation system that will include filtration. In late 2021, the city, in coordination with the city's lobbyist, Brian McConaughey, met to discuss the possibility of applying for a legislative grant and decided to proceed with the 2022 legislative session local community project grant application. On May 4th, 2022, the city received a preliminary award letter from the Department of Commerce for the appropriation of $412,000 for this project. A copy of that letter is included for reference. We have now before you the grant contract that has recently been reviewed by the city legal department and is presented here tonight for council approval. I will answer any questions that you may have on this item.
Kudos to you and kudos to our lobbyist for getting that state money. Fantastic. Any questions on this one? Anna?
Congratulations. Let's move it to consent.
Questions? Nope. Just give me a second. All right, everyone good with consent? All right, we will accept this money. Fantastic.
Council President,
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Mr. Mayor.
I always try to stay out of your business.
Hmm.
And this is something to consider. You can always change it, but this is an opportunity also to highlight something that's really, really cool. I mean, we're significant work going into a valuable library, valuable downtown resource. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
No, it's a good point. Council members, you wanna? Donna?
I truly beg your pardon, Council President. One thing that's really great about this contract is it's an opportunity for LEED funds, no? Yes. You're going for them, yes?
We are in doing to the extent allowed for this project.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gwen, did you have?
Yeah, I think I will take that suggestion from the mayor and I'll request that it goes on general business.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Focus on trying to get things moving, but I appreciate the pause to highlight the excellent work done by our staff. So thank you. All right. So this will go on general business for next session. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, Denise.
Just,
Mm.
yeah, I'm sharing with both y'all.
Sharon Karen.
Just a thought, shall we invite the library, or library representative to be here? I mean, if we're putting it on general business, not just to pat ourselves on the back, maybe we should acknowledge the strong partnership by having them here if they have time.
Yeah, that sounds great. If they want to highlight the work that this will
Yeah.
do and the impact it'll have on the community and people
Yeah.
using the library. Yeah. I like that. We will send an invite out if Christine, you can, sorry, make sure I don't forget that we send an invite out. Okay, anything else on this one? Going once, going twice. Mr. Mottner, thank you. You are,
you.
you are relieved. All right. Next up, we have items 4 and 5, and we have Judge Tracy Flood and Municipal Court Administrator Jennifer Johnson here to present. So we'll start with item A5, which is a public works agreement with, I'm guessing, Utter Associates Incorporated for audio visual equipment design and install at the Bremerton Municipal Court. So thank you to you and take it away.
Good evening. It's okay to respond.
Good evening.
Little interaction on
Mhm.
happy side. So first on the agenda bill is the contract in regards to the AV Media grant that I was before you on last summer. And the grant is an AOC grant. It's a one-time grant that we were lucky to be able to obtain of $50,000 per courtroom. Being a new judge, being new to the process, that grant money became available July 1st. And the state cycle period is their year from July 1st to June 30th.
with the court past leadership not having much experience with grant writing and all of the grant proposals that I was putting forth. Of course, it was the learning process of how to move forward, and with assistance with Melinda and contract, information was sent over to her. We came back, accepted the grant, all of that was approved, if you all recall. On getting grants and getting funding into the court to bring us up to par. Many of you know that there hasn't been any upgrades and improvement in our courtrooms in a number of years. We struggle on a daily basis, trying to manage the new Old Courts program, Laserfish, our OWL, our media as a whole. So this, in many ways, was a gift. This was one of those where I couldn't pass it by. But the long and the short of it is that process has been done and a learning experience. And Utter and Associates has been the most responsive. They've come to the courthouse with our IT people, huh? Oh, is that okay to say that? Okay. They've come to the courthouse with our IT, Hans, and been able to figure out what our needs are. But again, it's a long process. So the request in front of you today is pretty as condensed as we can get it, based on the amount of funds that we have, the estimates that we have been given of the equipment, the amount of time involved to get everything to par in both of our courtrooms. Again, because of the process, ordering the equipment puts it at, I put in the application, pretty much, it's a 21-week process. It would be ideal if the contractors could go out as soon as we sign a contract and get all of the equipment and be able to do that. What ALC is indicating to us is any monies that are paid out for the purchase of the equipment, for the removal of the old equipment, are all reasonable cost to bill immediately. That then leaves us the with the remaining hours that take place, that could take place up to June 30th, so that that last bill can be submitted June 30th for reimbursement. And then there's a period in time where there's a number of hours between June 30th and around the second week of August. Could be sooner, could be later. That puts us at over the budgeted amount. The estimate originally was at 124,000. Then there's an opportunity to go back to ALC in May, because we're submitting to them the documentation to show that we're over that 100,000. So any of the funds that are not used by the other courts, ALC is going to give us priority for any reallocation. We have some funds that we've already received from other ALC grants for equipment purchases that were built into some of the other grants, and that dollar amount is set out in the proposal as well. And that puts us at about another 14,000. And so in working with Mike and Melinda, we would like to move forward with Otter and Associates on this contract, with the understanding that there is a potential need for general fund support in the amount of $47,174. Which in essence, with the amount of grant funds that we're bringing in, it puts us really in a good position to be able to get the courts to where it needs to be, and to function, especially with the therapeutic courts. We're coming back into, last year we had 3 trials. We have the AB card. There's certain things that just don't function. And we have freezing, where the volume of cases I presented before that we have is equivalent to our Superior Court. There's a lot of drop downs that happen from there. And it's a constant churning between 8 and 9 from anywhere from 12 to 18 cases to get done within an hour. Any freeze, any glitch causes that to be deferred and to fall and to continue to compile and defer cases to be incurred at a later date. The Laserfish on the systems that we have, running it with O-Courts when you're trying to basically upload a file and create the electronic file, some of our systems crash right in the middle of down. We ran into problems with basically processing red flux payment because our credit card machine reader shut down. So these are daily issues that we have that we need to be able to function as a court. It's been, the court was established since there's been. So it is the court's request that you approve the contract for the 124,905 posted, which is what's quoted, for us to be able to move forward with that contract. There will be, of course, some adjustments, as because everything, of course, is estimates, but within that reasonable amount of anticipating that we have 16,000 in grant funds already received, another 5,000 in grant funds received that are for equipment upgrades that roll over into our other grants, which offset some of that cost. And the entire cost of all of the equipment will be reimbursed upon the purchase order and submission, along with the removal of the equipment. So, and that took lots of conversations, a lot of understanding of how the process works. And I believe I presented at the last meeting that we had already received 116,000 in funds toward the therapeutic court, which takes care of our therapeutic courts coordinator's salary, purchase of new equipment. And we are in the process of requesting the second half of that money, along with the 1/10 of 1% grant, which we. So we continue to look at grant opportunities and to find funding opportunities to support the programs. And I will be in Olympia next Tuesday with the District Court and the Municipal Court Service Association meeting with our legislators to talk about the therapeutic court grants and the different things that bring us funding that's not a one-time funding.
Stick. Any questions for Judge Floyd? Yes, Quinn.
Thank you. Just so sorry. I know you've come before us multiple times. I'm missing your name right now. I apologize. Jennifer Johnson. Okay, Ms. Johnson, thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. So the major question I have, it looks like you're requesting 47,174 that would be after the grant period. When you are talking to AOC, do they tell you how likely it is that they'll have grant money left over to reimburse that funding?
In speaking with Kyle, who's the staff person that's attached to the grant funding, he's pretty sure that there will be grant funds. And he wanted to emphasize that the $100,000 is guaranteed. So as much of that money that can be assessed up front, we're guaranteed to receive that as reimbursement as long as we get that to them by June 30th.
Got you. And then the labor costs might adjust that as well.
Right.
And
That's
it's possible.
Right.
I would assume there's some equipment costs and other things that might change at that time. So if we don't receive the 47, worst case scenario, and you like yourself, I always think about worst case scenario, but if we don't receive all of that grants, the 47,174 would just be coming out of our normal budget. General fund?
Yeah, it'd be a budget adjustment to make it whole. So we need that authority to kind of move forward with the contract. We have some unknowns. We're hopeful that those funds will come to fruition, but we need the council approval to authorize the general fund dollars just in case. That's why it's in front of you.
And you said that there hasn't been updates to funding with the municipal court, is that correct? is about 2010. Okay, so it's been, I got 13 years. Okay, yeah, I think it's really important to have swift carriage of justice and the ability to, especially for, I believe you have purview over some felonies, right? When,
So we get drop downs
okay,
of matters that the city refers up to the accepted Superior Court for possible felony charges. And then we also get dropped down
from
from
the
the Superior Court as the matters that they say, okay, yeah, you take this city of Bremerton.
and I'm assuming you have some indigent defendants that might be out of state. And so some good technology would be really helpful. Great. Cool. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Other questions? Denise?
I can hear in your voice, Judge Flood, that you've been hitting the ground running. And I know that you look forward to the process being much more intentional, much more thorough, much more knowledgeable, right? Savvy, that might be a good word, savvy about all this. I want to commend you really for the somewhat aggressiveness of your work to improve the court. Yeah, I don't really have any questions. Thank you for that clarification. That basically it would hit our, I am concerned about that, hitting our general fund with nearly $50,000 cost, but you all seem to be pretty confident that things are going to come through.
There's been other areas where we have savings and the next up is
Yeah.
other funds. So there are the District of Municipal Court Judges Association has even been a grant writer. So with all of the experience and all the time that I spent on the last year on, we now have some internal support and we bring forth other grant opportunities. Support it. And and all of those programs that we know benefit our community as a whole. Again, in the city of Bremerton, we're the full-time doing part-time folks that are here, and the up-to-date and current on technology is and value needed for the process is needed for all the participants that come to us. That's both on the criminal side and
Jennifer?
Okay, I want to make sure that I quote, Councilman Dennehy right, swift carriage of justice. Is that the phrase you use? Okay, I like that. I quoted that. I wrote it down. So this technology.
Not mine.
I know. Is it? So Counselor Dennehy coined the phrase. No, but it just caught my ears, you know, because that's so important to get this technology in place for that swift carriage of justice. I guess, absolutely in support of it. So don't think I'm not when I start playing devil's advocate for a hot minute here, because I wanted to know if there were grants that you were confident you were going to receive this year, but did not receive. Because that, I guess, is that fair to ask?
I think that's fine, because I brought forward to you the federal opportunity, which would have probably right at around $1,100,000 if we had to do that. Well, right now we're probably sitting just a little bit under 600,000 with all of the funding that I anticipate from the grant. That is, I actually got an opportunity to meet one of the county individuals who does grants over there, and she told me how much of a competitive process it was, but was very impressed with what I did put in. So that was good to hear, but I won't give up. And so there's some other federal grants that have just been brought to our attention from the Municipal Court Justice Association. And I think with the support of the experience that I had this year and grant writer on staff. I did receive some support from one of our senior retiring attorney grant writers on some of the grant. But I think between the three of us, the next round, we will hope to be successful. And I believe the police department may have received some funding from one of those grants before a one-time one, because even trying to figure out how to upload the but we do, and you'll hear more about this on Saturday, just quickly, we do, want some of the things that they were asking for certification on, we didn't specifically have, because it hasn't been done in the past, but going forward, we set those things in place, that we'll have. To make sure that you're ready, and it won't be so pulling on, it won't be so, heavy on the, trying to get information from other departments. Because of course, the timelines on those federal grant applications will come pretty quickly. And
Okay.
they're particular in the documentation that they want, up from insurance to, audit. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, thanks for moving closer to the mic. I heard a note that Zoom wasn't quite picking it up. So as we all learn and adjust exactly where to sit from these, yeah. Thanks for just getting that closer to you. All right, sorry. go
So,
ahead.
so is it fair to say though, that y'all are in the process of learning how to kind of, refine your grant writing and grant, your processes, as a team? Cause it sounds like you're you're reaching out.
I'm building a bigger team.
Okay.
A
So,
team
but
of
like,
me
your
on grant
networks.
writing is
Mhm.
what existed that got us the 4 grants.
Yeah,
A team
yeah.
of me and 0.5.
Excited to get that
So
money.
now, yes.
And to get, I mean, like you said, to get the restorative justice programs going and so on. But I think specifically my question was, I guess, in thinking about, are we guaranteed this grant or is it gonna come out of, we're not guaranteed this grant. It could come out of the general fund if the grant is not received, about 50 grand. We're talking about 47.
Yeah.
So we're guaranteed 50,000 per quarter. It was set for a period in time. We're now 6.5 months into that cycle and nothing's been initiated. So that's the challenge. And then I'll.
Yeah, let me ask Mike too, because I bet he can explain it way better than, he knows more than I do. Yeah.
Okay, so just said it perfectly. So we have up to $100,000 that's available, and all the costs, as long as things get done, are eligible up to that 100 grand. So we know we have an exposure over 100 grand, about $27,000 of these be funded. We don't have a funding source for. We believe there's some room in the budget already that's for equipment we can use, and some grant dollars that will offset that, probably 20 grand. But we have known costs. They can order the equipment right away, which is a significant amount of money. I think 60, I'm not looking at my notes, but it's about $65,000. You guys can correct me. And there's also some takedown of equipment. So the exposure risk that we're looking at is the labor. The labor to come in and do the install is an unknown timeframe, because the lead time on equipment, they don't know exactly where to receive it. If they receive it in May and can come in and install it, they can bill all the way up to 100 grand, and we have that funding available. If they're not able to get it and they start working July 1, those labor costs are no longer eligible to the grant. So that's the exposure risk. So what we're asking for, we're hopeful, but we need to know we're willing to move this forward with a $47,000 ask that could be out of the general fund. But we're working with the court closely to identify other dollars. AOC is a great partner to work with, and I think it's pretty confident to say there will be funds that can be allocated. We're looking to see if there's a way to get an extension of time, but their fiscal year ends in June 30. That's why the date, it makes it a little more difficult for the state of Washington to operate that way. So, but
That's interesting that it ends on June 30th, because I thought the fiscal year ended like September usually for a lot of these
Federal
grant
government,
programs.
federal
That's
government.
federal.
So that's the fun part of all the grant awards that we juggle here in the city, is we're all
Yes.
working on different fiscal year ends. The state of Washington, our fiscal year end, which is 12/31, and the federal government at 9/30. So a lot of moving parts, but we just need to be, for full transparency, there could be a risk of $47,000. But again, if we get 80 grand of $100,000 grant, that really is pretty easy to work with. It's great money for the court to make those upgrades that are needed. We have some temporary solutions with the owl they talked about that's in the courtroom during the Zoom owls, which are great for maybe this meeting, but maybe don't function as well in a court setting that's more of a virtual court than it used to be. So the city is very supportive of moving this forward, but again, there's additional dollars that will need to move this
Thank
forward.
you. That, okay, that was a piece I was missing. I appreciate that. And y'all are making a good team to get this done and get that money. And that's all the questions I really have. Thank you very much, Judge
Thank
Flood.
you. Thank you.
So let me, went to Quinn, yeah, so let me jump in with the, make sure I got this understood right. So, and again, looking worst case scenario, there's the 47,000 in
Worst case
change.
scenario.
Is that worst case
Yes.
scenario, worst case
Yes.
scenario that doesn't come in.
Mhm.
And then ballparking roughly, we pretty much know we can spend 65 of the 100K. Sorry, the royal we is the city, can spend that money right away. So there's not a risk there,
So it's 65,
but there is, mhm.
356 plus another 7,900 that we can spend right.
Okay, so about 72 or so. Okay, so that leaves about 28,000 of the 100,000. That if there's a long lead time on the labor, so worst case scenario, we're really looking at authorizing an extra 47,000 plus 28,000. I got that correct, looking at Riley. Okay,
Yeah. And just to note, there's an additional part of contracting with, I think the judge said already, after this gets intent to award, there's negotiations on the estimates of hours. So this could come down
Yeah.
potentially. So there'll be a final contract that is put out, but this is, I'm trying to use legalese, but I can't think of it, to form is where we're at, what's been submitted by the contractor. So there could be a potential that the cost goes down slightly.
Okay.
So.
And it does have a cushion. There's like a cushion of cost that's included in
Okay.
that to make sure that it doesn't exceed what we're saying. And
oh, good.
and
So
what
there's-
ALC is saying that in May, because we are coming in saying that our contract amount is 124,000, there's funds that can be allocated over and above the 100,000. But again, it's the timing of getting the equipment in, the labor. So we can be awarded additional costs above the 100,000. We're at the mercy of UPS
The
and
known unknowns.
the
Yeah.
unknowns and
Sure. Okay.
labor.
So sounds like worst case is about 75,000. If I added up my math right, between the 28 and the 47.
So-
Not the most likely case, but the worst case.
Worst case.
Worst case.
And that there would be 16,000 that comes off of that because of other grants that still have monies that are designated. And then we have the 1/10 of 1% grant where there's equipment designated to the end of December.
Perfect. No,
There were lots,
good. Just good to be,
lots of grants.
yeah.
That,
Thank you. It's, yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, good to
There's a
be,
little piece of media included in
no, good to be transparent if we're authorizing additional taxpayer funds. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, Quinn. Yes, you had a question. Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to say, Ms. Johnson, Judge Flood, thank you so much for vigorously going after these funds and trying to update our courts and make sure that Bremerton is well into the 21st century and working very well and knowing that, pandemics might happen again and we need to update our technology. My last question, unfortunately, isn't for you all. It's for Director Riley. And maybe this is a request for Saturday, but I know we need to say, I think it's in the 16 to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to speak into a microphone while talking to you. The 16 to 17% to keep our bond rating. I believe our budget is, these numbers around. like
Yeah, I think our
129
adopted budget
million.
was 17.2%. So we got some room there with some dollars at ending fund balance that are above our, the preferred balance. So yes.
I think that would be really helpful for council to know like what that dollar amount is to safely stay within our AAA bond rating, so that we know when we're kind of thinking about worst case scenarios, what funding we want to
Well,
prioritize.
perfect. We'll put some preliminary numbers together for, I believe that's Saturday. What we'd like to present to, the finance committee, typically what we do is once we close 22 to know real numbers. Right now, it's all based off estimates and budget. We want to close what we actually spent for 22. That will carry in to know what our actual ending fund balance was for 22, which becomes our beginning fund balance. And that will reset our ending fund balance. And that's going to come a little bit later. It takes a little bit to get everything closed, everything paid. We're still getting invoices from WashDOT and vendors. So might not have good data for you to play with on Saturday, but we do provide that to the Finance Committee typically by March. So it's sooner than later. So we can make some decisions as we go forward, just so you know where we ended up. So.
Excellent. That's great to know. Thank you so much.
And
Yeah,
just
love-
for an addition, I said 16,000 plus there's another 5,500 from another grant, so.
Okay, so I can cover.
Other metrics. So we're about 21 to add to that.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Say that out loud. All right. Well, it's gone. Good. No, I didn't. Yeah, let me say out loud and echo Councilmember Denny that fantastic getting these grants. I just want to make sure though, looking at the city of, I mean, this Director Riley requires a mid-year, another budget adjustment, correct?
Yeah,
And I
well,
know they're not.
yeah,
they're not
what's
trivial
happening
every
here
time.
is like notifying it to the council.
Mhm.
So we'll note it. And then at mid-year, we carry that forward to fully adopt
Okay.
the adjustment. So if needed, this is
Okay.
kind of an if need, we'll still need to adjust our authority based on what grants, if we get additional grants, we'll change that as we get it. But yeah, they'll be adopted in the mid-year.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to be cognizant of that, of every request, although doing good things with it does require, yeah, definitely a lot of staff time. So maybe that's something Saturday we can tag up on what might else come before us. And I think just with that we may have to authorize up to 70 and change. This is good for general business for transparency. If folks are good with that. So if no other questions or comments, we can pick it up. next week.
47,
47. thank you.
47.
Okay.
Save some money.
There we go. 47. All right, bit under 50. Excellent. Okay, so this will go in general business for the next meeting. And next up, that brings us to item 6A, which is set annual compensation for the Bremerton Municipal Court Judge effective July 1st, 2022. And before we launch, and I know this item in particular made it on the agenda a little late. And I saw some emails right before the meeting that there seems to be still some back and forth as to the basically whether this amount is required to get a grant, this adjustment. And so Judge Flood, Administrator Johnson, do you want to postpone this until the next study session in 2 weeks to kind of work out some of those questions?
Actually, no, we can't, because this certification is waiting on us for the entire state of Washington, because it's multiple courts, and any delays those courts also.
Okay, no, then feel free to go ahead and present, and then we'll ask questions.
I'll let them speak to everything else. There's a certification that happens twice a year, at the beginning of the year and then at mid-year. The certification AOC specifically sends to the judges. And they ask the judges to certify what your salary is. That certification is based on what Jennifer will be speaking on the commission and how salaries are set. The challenge here is, again, being new in the process and understanding how things and how historically things have been done and what they actually ask the judges to do. And I think the best way to see it is the funds can't be dispersed to one court based on their certification. It's all, they take into account each judge's salary. They do a percentage of that, and that awards the grant funds for all of the elected judges that are part of the program. So they send the monies out quarterly, but ask for the certification twice a year. And that's why we were here last July, and based on the information that was put forth, that certification needed to be done at that time. So that brings us back to the beginning of the year. So usually twice a year, it would be a certification being required.
I'm so sorry, Judge Flood, you can put that mic right in front of you if you don't mind. I know it's, yeah,
Okay,
it
I'm gonna-
has a quick drop off as soon as you get a ways away. Yeah.
That's why the certification is required.
Okay. So are you ready for council questions, or is there anything else you wanted to add there?
That's
Mhm.
okay. If I could just add, so I am coming because I bring a lot of history in regards to specifically this. In regards to the 95%. So because the certification does have to be signed off by the judge, and in my previous two cities that I had worked on, they were part of this program also. And the judges always asked, can you please go ask payroll or HR what that salary is? And so that's the question that I sent to HR. I said, what is the judge's salary? And it came back with a response of 176. And so, and even in my previous cities, the numbers always came back to what the 95% was. I gave it back to the judge, and then that issue, the judge signs it, sends it off. It's not the administrator's job or the HR job to define what the judge's salary is, because this program actually required that once you are part of this program, the AOC encouraged that the courts should go to their city council and have their city council amend their municipal court judge's salary. So it reflects that the salary is not set by the city council, it's set by the Washington State Commission. That was never done here. And I can tell you that in 2007, 2010, and 2015, it was highly encouraged to all the municipal courts to do it. And the modifications were done to majority of them, but some continued not to go to their council to have those modifications done. I'm here tonight because when Judge Blood asked for the certification and my previous history of doing these, I questioned the salary that came back as it was not meeting the 95%. So when I spoke to HR, they clarified to me, they said, well, it's this 176 plus the 4% management deferred comp to equal the 95%. That was never the intent of when this program first started, which was back in 2005. And the only reason why I know that is because the previous judge from Kent Municipal Court, Judge McSeveny, was part of the program in putting this together to help the cities build a ramp up to cover those costs. When the program first started in 2005, from 2005 to 2009, they allowed the cities that were a part of the program to roll their funding over to help bring up those judges' salaries for the municipal courts so that they were equal or to the 95 to the 100%. That was not being done. And so I'm here tonight to ask for the council. I know my original motion said to have it go back to July 1st. In order for Judge Flood to be able to sign off on the certification, I'm asking the council to allow her salary to be at the 183,774, which is the 95% salary of the district court judge's salary for 2023. And make it effective July 1st, or I'm sorry, January 1st, so that she can sign the certification saying that it's at that set salary. And we can send it off to AOC, so we're not delaying the other courts, so that everyone can get their quarterly reimbursements for the program, for the trial court funding.
So sorry, before going to questions, to make sure that I got the big picture right. There is the grant money we get as a city. In order to get that grant money, the judge's salary has to be at a certain level. And I think the questions I saw today was, is that level by taking into account salary and parts of compensation, hit the 95 or not? Okay. And that. So, yeah, let me go questions to council and ask that there. And sorry, Quinn, hand up first. Mhm. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay.
You get time for
I'm gonna go ahead and do it because I'm Chair of Public Safety, if that's all right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna,
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Yes.
take my
No,
space here
You're
at the
correct. I
table.
should
and
have-
just
That was
kind of-
my fault. That's what I'm saying.
Here I am, world. You may never have heard my voice before here at this meeting. Just kidding. So, okay, so, did we already approve the a salary increase that was, retroactive?
So, because Jennifer wasn't here, I'll bring this over so that you can hear me. We were in front of council last August. The salary became effective on July 1st. The dollar amount requested at that meeting was 183,745. What they're asking me to certify is that my salary is 184 to 193,447. So technically, there's even a glitch there, because I think what got calculated was the 4% and then what the salary was. If we correct this now, it kind of keeps us from having to come back and try to figure out the adjustments, because you're not adding in a dollar amount that continues to change. But also what's needed, from my understanding from Mr. Reyes' email, is that there actually needs to be language updated to say what the salary is set at, which is the history that Jennifer is speaking to. That's all I can speak to, because again, this is a request for me to certify. In the email, it has the email certification actually says to certify that your salary is at 184,000, blah, 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 to the 193.
And so this is to set the annual compensation for the trial court improvement program. Are we receiving grant funding, Jennifer, from this
Yes.
program?
Yes, we
How-
are.
How many what's the grant amount we're receiving from this program?
21,700.
So,
Yeah.
so we're receiving 22,
21,548.
but the cost of doing, of receiving these grant funds is that we have increased, we're losing some of that grant. I mean, it's a really, I don't want to say it like this. It's a small amount of funding. Okay. It's a small amount of funding for the amount that we're giving up for the salary, right? I mean, here's where I'm going with this too, is, we just talked about this in finance yesterday. For instance, our mayor, is, 30, you're about 30% below average, sir, on your full service cities compared to other mayors. 30% below, in salary. And I just feel like that should be taken into account as well. But I want to know the benefits of being part of this program and why, $10,000 to $15,000 of grant money is worth it. Because when it all comes out in the wash, right?
Right.
So,
the trial court improvement funds is actually, is used to help the court purchase, like, for example, they used it for the new facility. They've used it for, getting the O courts system. The money's not used for the judge's salary. It's used to make trial court improvements. That's what they want us to use the funds for.
okay.
Is your mic on?
Oh, goodness, I'm sorry. I don't even know what all I said, but basically, thank you for explaining, yes, that $22,000 would be used for court improvements. However, we are sacrificing a small amount of that from other funding sources to raise the salary in order to take advantage of the program, which really, to me, it feels like there should be a better process and for determining a salary increase than just $20,000 worth of, that's just my opinion, for just $20,000 worth of grant funds, there should be a better process on how to raise an elected official's salary.
Okay, Quinn?
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, it seems like you have a lot of like institutional and historical knowledge around this. This is me just kind of conjecturing, but is the point of making sure that the 95 to 100% salary range, if you're going to participate in this program, is to ensure that you're having high quality legal professionals being elected into these positions and kind of creating a competition? I know there was an election that went on, right? That was well fought, and making sure that the best legal professional comes into the position of municipal court judge. Is that like the policy intent behind this program, or requiring it to be 95 to 100?
Actually, no, that was not the intent. The intent was for the municipal court judges' salaries to be close to the district court judges. And the reason is because of courts like ours, where we are extremely busy. We're not, the work that we are doing is almost equal to a district court judge. The only things that we aren't doing are civil hearings, but even those, we're doing towing, we're doing things like that. But that's why the intent of the program was to get the municipal court judges to be at that or close to that salary range.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think we're saying similar,
In the same-
same, right? Like we want high quality, well-paid people in this really important position, because as Judge Flood and you told me tonight, you get felonies sent to you from Superior Court. You're operating very similarly to a district court, not just a municipal court that's
It's a higher level.
right.
It's
You're not
very
doing
much a
just
higher
parking
Yes.
tickets, right? So I am personally in favor of making sure that you all are in compliance with the program in order to maintain not only our competitiveness based on salary. The number, I've thought about that, about the mayor's salary many times. And when you came before us asking for the original salary, I was happy that it was in a similar range that I know to be equitable around Washington State. I would like to continue both the involvement in the program so that we can get the grant funds in the future, but also to ensure that's like an extra lever to ensure that there's a competitive salary for the municipal court judge, right? If we do take an economic downturn, that's one position, in my opinion, that I don't want to see getting money pulled from, because we want the best person to carry out justice in the best way. So that's my opinion. Thank you for that.
And I think the only thing to add is, Jennifer, when you were asking about the grant funds, it changes, it increases, it doesn't decrease. It doesn't decrease, it increases.
Any other questions, Quinn, or?
Sorry,
I get,
last question. And just to be clear, when my retirement gets taken out, it's part of my compensation package, and then they move it into a deferred compensation. The management 4%, that is compensation that the city kicks in addition to the 178, but that is not allowed to be taken into consideration as compensation for this program. Am I understanding that correctly? Based on the faces, I'm going to say no.
So when I sent the request to AOC, and I specifically said it's a 4% management deferred comp, I was told no. But it seems like there's some discrepancy in going back and forth with the new AOC financial manager.
Got you. Okay.
the document that they want me to sign does not include it. Now, if there's been conversations that I have not been privy to. So the problem that I have is what's in front of me requiring my certification says that it's not to be included.
And that's very important in your legal profession to not perjure yourself or make misstatements. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, I would recommend that I just did the calculation. I'm not good with math, but this would be akin to you getting a 4% raise over the last year. And I think that's manageable.
So can I, oh, sorry, do you mind if I jump in? I know it's out of order, but no, thanks. I'll get. One question I want to ask is the deadline. So reading the documentation, they want it in this quarter. I don't know, they said as soon as possible, but is there an actual date that they need this decision by? I mean, that this signed by?
We were the last ones last year. All the courts were waiting on us because we didn't get in front of you until August. So they like for it to be done in the month of January. And that was the reason why we put it on for today.
Okay. But if it slips until let's say 2 weeks out, or it has to be 3 weeks at this point. Okay.
Any delay affects any delay affects the next distribution to all of the other courts that are a part of this program. And they will know that they're waiting on Bremerton Municipal Court.
Okay. Now so with the emails, it seems like we're AOC, I thought I saw on one of them, and I'm gonna kind of defer to legal here, who I know have, seen them. It seemed like AOC had said that I thought they had verified that this raise wasn't necessary to be to qualify.
So I will
Sorry,
say,
but
sorry,
yeah, there
Mr.
just seems to be
President,
some confusion. Yeah.
the email does not say that.
Okay. Let me ask Attorney Fennell on her interpretation of what's been sent out to the city so far.
So part of our review for when things come before the council is, we review them for you guys. And when on reviewing this is how we had always done it, and that we calculated the deferred comp as a part of the salary for the certification. And that's how you got to the 95%. When we saw this added on to the agenda last week, I think it was Thursday, it was different than how we had calculated it in the past. And of course, we were, wanted to look into why we should gotten it wrong for so long, I guess. So when researching that, the formula, there was, if you looked in your agenda packet, go back up to the item, there's a couple of things. The agenda bill sets out that in August, we moved the salary to the 183,744.65. If you look in the email that's on page 110, that's in that range down there at the bottom of the second paragraph. And so the question becomes then is it salary and deferred comp to get to that number, or is it just salary? And so if it's just salary, then the deferred comp is in addition to that, right? And if it's included, then it's a lower number plus deferred comp to get to that number. So does that kind of explain the math? So there's two different ways to compute that. In the past, and all the other certifications that Bremerton's done, it was included in that. And that's what the email that we received today. And like I said, normally whenever we have more time to review this stuff is doesn't come in last minute, but that we got today from AOC said, and I can just read it.
Yeah.
So we were in a mediation on Monday. I had Michael and Michael Rhea and Charlotte looking into this because it's kind of, Michael is the person who reviews our agenda items and Charlotte, of course, sets our salaries. But it says, hello, Charlotte. It was nice talking to you on the phone today. I checked with my division director, Christopher Stanley, in regards to your inquiry, whether your salary calculation may include as part of the 95%, those funds which are deferred compensation. He says all eligible deferred compensation plan contributions, not just those having a matching component, may be counted for purposes of meeting the 95% rule of the trial court improvement program. I'm copying Jennifer Johnson and Michael on this email, since this was something they were looking for clarity on as well. I will need to update the FAQ answer later to reflect that our answer is intended for all deferred comp and not just matching. And I think what she's referring to there is there was a document that AOC had prepared in the past that said what will be included when computing the annual salary for municipal court judges, the 95% rule in parentheses. And the answer to that FAQ was normal salary and wages plus longevity pay if all judges within the jurisdiction are eligible and eligible deferred compensation match programs. Benefits such as Social Security and retirement will not be included. And I think that's what they're referencing when they say that where it said eligible deferred compensation match programs were to be included. The interpretation is that it's all eligible deferred compensation plan contributions, not just those that have a matching. That's information that we got today. And so luckily I was concerned whether we owe Judge Docker back pay or something for a long time, apparently not. And so that's the information that we got late this afternoon.
So it's your interpretation from that email that AOC is saying that we do not need to raise the salary to be eligible for these funds at present.
The salary computation includes the salary as well as deferred compensation. And so those combined, if they meet that 95%, then that is in compliance with the grant.
Gotcha. And that at the current base salary plus the deferred compensation as is present meets that 95%.
So, yes,
Yeah, sorry,
Mike,
Dr.
Mike
Riley.
is,
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, it does.
okay. So there's definitely a discrepancy between that email and I think what we're hearing now. And so going back to the deadline, can we take some time to make sure that Attorney Fennell and Director Riley and you all and AOC are talking and get real good clarity on what's required? Not that, I don't think I'd love to see a raise, but what's before us right now to stage or main is a raise due to this requirement.
So I think that what the request is that to qualify for the program is the basic 95%. But the email certification, and that's the issue, which if city council is saying they want to take a couple of more weeks, then of course, the court is not going to sign the certification based on the information that it currently has. Because the certification is very specific in what it states. The emails are email communication, but the certification is very specific. And it says, is your range in salary from 184 to the 193?
and excuse me,
No
Judge,
matter,
I just had a question. Is that the certification that's in the packet?
I believe the certification in the packet is the last certification. The certification for me to do right now, I'm not sure that that's included, but we did. What's wrong?
Sorry, Anna, can you hold on, please? Yeah.
There's one at
Sorry,
page 112, and I was just wondering if that was the one of the packet.
So this is the page titled Administrative Office of the Court's Annual Certification of Eligibility. And it says certification for calendar year 2023.
So that's the one, that's the certification I have to fill out going forward.
Okay, so what's in our
And then
packet
I
is-
also included, I think we also included the certification we did last July.
Just checking my packet here.
I think it specifically says municipal court qualify for funding if the judge serves in an elected position and receives a salary that is 95 to 100% of a district court's judge's salary. So I think that there's a lot of information that's gone back and forth, but ultimately this is the document that I have to sign.
Okay, let me go, sorry. Yeah, let me go to. Yes, yeah, I'm getting there, Jennifer, sorry. We need to keep track of who's talked, okay. So yes,
This really doesn't feel good. It's the process. And it's not the first time. So it just feels rushed. It feels like pressure. And it's really sensitive and personal. And it's never good to rush those kinds of situations and those discussions and decisions. And we're getting conflicting information and from two different branches. And we need to find out, this council needs to know which is true. Is deferred compensation allowed to be added to that base salary or whatever it is, or not? As you're stating, I'm hearing yes from a very reputable source, and I'm hearing no from a very reputable source. We need to know which it is, because there would be no pressure, there would be no rush if that was clear. You know, it just doesn't feel good. Never coming in to ask for a salary raise based on a last minute call on whether something is required or not. And I don't feel good about this at all. And if it were to go next week, it would go to general business, and all hell might break loose. I don't know. But yeah, and that's another thing. This has to go to general business if we move it forward. It couldn't possibly go on consent as far as I'm concerned.
okay, and to make sure we're in order here, let me take a breather. Because I believe I spoke, Jennifer spoke, Quinn spoke, Denise has spoken. I don't think Anna has had a turn for this round, for this item. So I just want to make that clear. Okay, so Anna, please, go ahead. And thanks for your patience.
You guys were all very patient during public works items. So here's my thing. If we push this forward to a study session 2 weeks from now, the consequence will be that a number of district court judges will not be certified to receive the funding from this particular group for an additional 2 weeks. We will be 2 weeks later. I have to say, I was hoping I could say I feel only a little sympathy, but actually I feel no sympathy. Coming from a city where 40% of households make less than $40,000 a year, the fact that once this money comes through, it's going to be retroactive. I want us to, instead of trying to do this rushed at the last minute back and forth, let's go home and have like a really decent dinner. We'll look at all this information 2 weeks from now. And everybody here is interested in doing the right thing. But right now, we don't have enough data, and so we're going, So if I can make a motion during study session, I move that we have this motion, that we have this agenda item on the study session 2 weeks from now. Can I make a motion? What the heck?
Let's have if you're okay with it, let's have a discussion, but yeah, I'm not a disagreement. Okay, so that finishes round one. Yes, Quinn.
So apparently there's information that came to light that's very important. Compensation, deferred compensation is compensation that is tax exempt and allowed to earn based on being put into whatever investments the certain program you are in. I'm not sure if it's a 401A or a 401. But it is still part of the compensation. What I thought was happening was the certification form specifically said deferred compensation cannot be included. When I'm looking at this compensation form, that's not what I'm seeing. And so I understand your trepidation to sign the certification form, but based on the framing of this issue, I agree with Councilmember Fry that it seems, especially it seems like the administrator, the AOC email would be the ones that make the call of whether or not deferred compensation would be part of that salary.
Understood.
And so I'm going to reverse my course as well.
So I just have a question as far as the process. We put this on for today, so we just need to supplement our materials next time. We don't need to resubmit everything that we've submitted for today. So what's missing from this packet is the cover letter that gives all of the information as to why I'm saying I cannot sign the certification in its fact. So that is where it lays out the 184,000 to, that's the information from ALC in the form that it came to me. So that's what's not being seen and what's being read from this emails that, again, I was not privy to.
So I'm going to put forth, I think we have two options before us as council. We could all agree that it doesn't go on general business and it can come back in next study session with 2 weeks more of information. We can agree to put it, or we can agree to put it on general business. We'd have a week till next week for folks to maybe sort out what's going on, have some more communication. And maybe at that point, after a couple days, we'd feel comfortable with our back pocket of if there's still more communication that needs to happen to get clarity on this. It can be pulled from general business at the request of any one council member. It can be reinstated at the following request of any two. I think those are our two choices. But let me go to see thoughts and see what folks want to do.
Yeah, I was gonna
There's
get
that.
clarifying information. Anna, you wanted to go ahead and pull it from this agenda, from this, right? 2
We go
weeks,
2
and
weeks, yeah.
and I'm concur with that. Second, I second.
Worth it.
Okay.
Question, and I don't know who this request goes to, if it goes to Judge Flood and Administrator Johnson, or if it goes to legal or whoever's. I might inquire into the program. It would be interesting for me and possibly the rest of council to know if deferred compensation is taken into account for the other judges that are being certified in this program, and what that deferred compensation may be. You know, I know 4% match is pretty standard and not horribly significant to a salary, but you know, there may be folks that take into account a 10% match from their employer and therefore are being compensated far less. And I want to just make sure that we're not only competitive in the market, but also not overly compensating using family.
And also, I think, again, the cover letter will explain the range and the discretion that each municipality has to have to set within that 95 to 100% range. And I think Kadi was correct in saying historically, I believe, again, I said there's a lot of historical context as to there. But the cover letter, and I saw that and I said, okay, send it over. But when it came back, the salary was 176. And that's what the information that came in. And then all of the conversations came forward. Knowing, again, that last summer, this was July 1st, and we didn't get in front of council until, 6 weeks later. That was
Understood.
understanding the process and how things come from AOC.
Yeah.
And
Have
Judge,
control over that.
So
Judge, I have a question. I don't know if you can look at do you have your agenda in front of you, or is it on your phone? Is the letter you're talking about at page 110? I just want to see if that's the same one.
No, I don't.
It's dated, it's from AOC to presiding judges and court administrators, trial court improvement program. It has that range in there. I was just curious if that's the one you're talking about.
That may be the letter. I know that, there was a cover letter and an email. So I tried to submit as much information as I could.
Okay, so I, yes.
So-
Okay.
so it's good
What I
throwback.
propose is I'm seeing a consensus by
you're
council to move this
fancy.
to the next study session.
And
So I'd say let's go ahead and wrap
okay, so
up with
then
any
that's that.
objections and move on with our agenda. There was a motion, though I don't know if we really take motions at study sessions. I think we should have that conversation, I mean, going out. But what I'm seeing is clear consensus from council to move this to next study session. So we'll go ahead and bring it back to the next study session. Good communication behind the scenes, but let me say out loud, thank you to everybody for deep diving on this. And I think it's great that everyone has the integrity to make sure that, signing off on forms is done correctly, and these things aren't easy. So again, just thank you and kudos to all, and everybody's hearts is absolutely in the right place. So thank you.
Can I say one final thing?
All right, one final
Sorry,
thing.
just one final
Although
thing.
then I gotta give equal
The
opportunity.
anxiety that I had
Mhm.
becoming an attorney, I cannot imagine how 10 to 1,000-fold that must be for the responsibilities of becoming a judge. So give yourself grace, because I'm sure you're learning a very, very important job.
Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. And for fair, okay, just want to make sure. All right. Thank you all. And with that, we're on to item number 7. So Director Riley is here to present 7, which is amendment number 2 to the interlocal agreement between the Transportation Benefit District of Bremerton and the Washington State Department of Licensing. Director Riley, take it away.
If you don't mind, I'll just say here real quick, there's no presentation tonight.
Okay.
Everything's in your packet. It's housekeeping from the Department of Licensing to the city regarding our Transportation Benefit District, which was the first amendment was to the city council assumed the board of the Transportation Benefit District. So if you look at the last page of the item, I'll scroll all the way down to the agreement. Has one revision. Bear with me. There's a lot of pages. The change from the update is from Department. There's 2 things. They updated the Department of Licensing contract manager effective immediately. And the second thing was a change the section of fee collection. A change in the amount of fee collected will be implemented no less than 120 days from the time the DOL contract manager receives a copy of a signed and dated ordinance or resolution changing the fee from the city. It went from 180 days to 120 days. That's the only change in the agreement.
Okay.
We just
great.
need to notify Department of Licensing that we've increased or decreased fees.
Perfect. Any questions for Director Riley? All right, seeing none, are folks good with this housekeeping on consent? All right, then item 7 will be on consent agenda for next meeting.
Thank you.
With that, I'll go ahead and call a 5-minute break, if that's good with folks, since we're hitting about the 2-hour mark, and then we'll reconvene for general council business. All right, we are back and we are on agenda item B, which is general council business. So I'll go ahead and start by inviting Public Works Committee Chair Anna Mockler to provide a summary of highlights of the last Public Works meeting on January 17th. I'll say thank you to everybody who became chairs and has taken on those roles. It's much appreciated. And microphone, sorry.
Okay, I have stopped thinking about deferred compensation. Okay, so it being January, we went briefly through all of the capital projects and got an update on all of them. For me, the most interesting one was the stormwater. Director Nucky, can you refresh my memory where the capped laterals on the as-built Oyster Bay beach sewer upgrades. Is that the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, let's see, I can't remember what was the specific issue of that project.
A number of, hang on. A number of the laterals, had to be capped, and the price increased, at the sewer. Out,
The contract modification.
Yeah,
There's
the
an upcoming contract modification. I think it's being scheduled for February 8th and 15th.
Yeah.
It's a few different things that happen on that project. One of them had to do with the capping of the laterals, and honestly, I gotta let Bill Davis really tell you about that.
Yeah.
But then there was also some other changes, addressing capacity of some of the pump stations that were constructed with that project and some other things that were addressed kind of last minute. So after the system was online.
thank you, Director Nucky, for being an excellent Director of Public Works. So for me, what was interesting about this was that Public Works had engaged in extensive in-house discussion on what could have been done better and what they will work on next time. To look more carefully at more as-builts. And kudos to Public Works, because as-builts are generally like, they're put in every contract that you have to have as-builts, but in general, you don't. But they had insisted upon them, and they were not perfectly complete, but they had identified areas of research that they will engage in for future projects to avoid expensive contract modifications. There were no huge issues except one that is not included in the minutes, but was in the meeting. The LED, the conversion to LED of our city's streetlights. Director Nucky forestalled all comment by saying, yes, we are going with the warm temperature ones, not those cold blue lights. Yeah. That should have been in the minutes, because everybody's going to read those minutes and go, no. But Public Works is on it. They've already done it. And if you guys look at the Public Works minutes, it's item 9 of general issues, PSE owns streetlight LED conversion. So that's pretty cool. Everything else, I mean, it's January. So in general, what's happening is people are designing things, people are looking at things. The only particularly active project is the sidewalk grinding and the pumping in of the foam to even it out and to remove trip hazards. Francis Drive Outfall project, you guys have heard all about tonight. The Anderson Creek Dam removals are moving along, which is great. It's really remarkable. If you all remember that was something that Public Works worked out as a compensation for the Schley Canyon. We are removing these dams that are not only doing nothing, but are an attractive nuisance where fencing has to be maintained. The decommissioning the beach sewer in Manette is still on hold. The nutrient general permit also still on hold. The big lift for Public Works in 2023 is chip seal and overlay of Belfair Valley Road, or reconstructing road base and then the chip seal and overlay.
Do you want me to expand on that a little bit?
I would really appreciate that,
Sure,
yes.
sure. So it's the the last year of a 3-year program to make repairs, and really they're necessary because of safety out on Belfair Valley Road. So it's a subgrade repair, and then 1 land mile of overlay in the area to smooth everything out and keep it safe. I don't know if you drove through there before we started working on it 2 years ago, but there were areas where it was, you just about launch your car. So it's actually much better now. And at the end of the summer, it's going to be at a point where we'll only have to, the heavy lift there will be done. And then we'll still go out there every year, but it'll be like, small repairs here and there, very minor. So the big efforts, will be complete this year.
Thank you, Director Nucky. And Counselor Younger brought up a constituent complaint that a gate was needed at the north end of NAD to address crime issues. And bada bing, bada bang, I believe that if that is complete and it's installed at this point, that's what the email threads are saying. Okay, it's scheduled for the next week, so.
Fantastic.
Okay, like before spring. Okay. So that was really all that there was for Public Works. I would. Yeah, I'm all done on that.
Fantastic. Any quick questions on any of that?
Okay.
All right, seeing none.
Audit.
Back to you for audit committee. Sure.
Audit committee is lovely. Wait, that's not very professional. Audit committee is an eminently professional committee. We were very happy to welcome Marwan Cameron for his first meeting. One of the few glitches, I'll start with the glitch, that has arisen is that Max Sinitza, the CPA, his company is no longer paying the $230 per 3-year licensing fee for him to be licensed in Washington. So around June 30th of this year, he will no longer be able to sit on the audit committee unless, something happens. One of the things that was extensively discussed is we looked at the work plan for audit. The parking, there are 3 separate parking investigation projects, all of which are put on hold until the middle of this year because the city is involved in negotiations. Since we have that vacuum, I have proposed one work plan item, and what we're going to do at the February meeting is to look at all of these work plan items and consider which we can do. Many of them are not purely financial, they are more investigatory in nature. One financial plan that I did propose is using Director Nucky's Oft Express statement that contracts cost 3 times what it would cost to do something in-house, which Director Riley has said is very conservative, and that the costs are probably much different, is to look at a few of the most common contractors that we use, Parametrix, ACI, SCJ, and to look at what recurring elements might exist in these contracts to be able to replace them with a city employee. Is that going to be true? And, are we going to find a wealth of them? I don't know. But it seemed like a good way to be good stewards of the people's money. Basically it was people explaining, here's how audit committee works, you strange new people. We were sitting at their feet and listening. I'm very happy to be in a group that is so committed to overseeing the business of the city of Bremerton for the benefit of the people of Bremerton. I'm turning to Gwyn Dennehy, who is also a member. Do you have any additional comments, Counselor?
No, I think you hit them, and
Okay.
we're happy to have you.
It was lovely.
I'm-
Oh, wait.
I'm sad to no longer be on that committee, but I know it's in good hands as well. And I think, Attorney Fennell, I need to get back to you on, if there's anything we can do to work with Max and a CPA license to keep him on. I think there's like 1 or 2 questions I still had there, but if not, it's nice that we have 6 months notice. So if indeed it's the case that Max can no longer serve, Mr. Sinitza can no longer serve on that committee, then if you know any CPAs, start tapping them on the shoulder now that we may be having to go out for another CPA. Unfortunately, but we'll see what happens there. Okay. Any other quick questions for on audit committee? Oh,
You
good.
just point of order,
Mhm.
Council President. Our city attorney is Kylie Finnell.
Fennel. I am sorry, Attorney Fennel. I feel like I've been butchering that for years now since I,
It's
You know.
okay. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I don't-
isn't it
No.
Fennel?
It's fennel. It's like the onion thing. It's
No,
fennel.
Fennel. Okay. Attorney Fennel. It's final that it's Fennel. It's finally final, Fennel. Fine, Fennel. All right. We're getting silly. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. No, if no questions on the audit committee, I will now invite Jennifer Chamberlain as Chair of Finance, Investment and Parking to provide a highlights of the meeting from January 24th.
Well, we were told it was gonna be a short meeting, but it lasted the full hour because we did spend a lot of time, talking about the investment report. That was the last item we covered. Just happy to report that the city is following, what is it? The safety, liquidity and yield. That's the trifecta of how they do their investments. We did talk about, the mayor's salary review process, which I alluded to earlier, that our mayor is a little bit underpaid compared to other full service cities. I guess we are the median, where the salary is the median for Bremerton, but I think that this was a component that I was having a little bit of trouble with. There's all cities in Washington, and our mayor is 34.9% below the average of all cities and 33.83% below the median of all cities in Washington. But for full service cities like ours, the mayor's salary is currently 29 and some change percent below average and 26.71% below the median. So what we really need to do is, as a council, I think we need to figure out a review process so that the mayor in general, whoever it is from year to year, doesn't have to come to council to beg for a salary increase. We have a process, right, for our salary increases, which is, an ad hoc committee. And I believe also Director Riley wasn't there. There's also not a time frame in place when the review is set to take place, right? So we need to maybe think about establishing a time frame every 4 years. Do we want to do it on an off election year, that sort of thing? Is there anything you'd like to add to what I covered regarding the mayor's salary?
If you don't mind,
Please do.
one clarification, city of Bremerton, with population and AB is at the median, right in the middle. The mayor's salary is actually for a
Thank you.
strong mayor, form of government. He is the lowest paid mayor in the state of Washington.
Thank you for that clarification.
Besides Edgewood, Washington, Edgewood. So he's the lowest paid mayor in the state with this form of government.
Well, he can't even afford a car. He has to walk everywhere. And he can't even, that was the joke somebody made at our finance meeting. It was actually Director Riley that made that. But no, but we need to create a process. We need to work, as a council and figure out so we can streamline this. Do we want to be the ones who make that change? Do we want to, an outside committee like we have for ourselves? And so that's just something for us to think about. I don't think it's going to be a retreat item. I think we have plenty to do that day, but we should definitely get this rolling really soon. Because there's the element of time, which is, we don't want, we want to, make sure that the way that we time it, that it's not like during an election year that a raise happens, that maybe it's like in an off election year, so that it's the timing of it is appropriate, things like that. That's all I really have to share on that committee. Thank you.
Nope, fantastic update and so not to dwell too much, but that would be something we might want to get in place, that if an ordinance was required, that is passed prior to budget season, so that gets factored in the following year. Okay. All right, so we can bring that up at a following study session. Perfect. Any other questions for Jennifer on finance? Okay. Next up was an item I added here for council rules and procedures, and we've gone longer than I thought. So originally, in my mind, I think it's good to, although the way last year worked out, we tagged up on this maybe 7 months ago. It hasn't been that long. But good form to just as procedure at the start of each year, take a look at our own rules and procedures to refresh new council members and see if anything needs to be changed. Originally put it on the retreat, but it's a pretty full agenda already, and where it was going to be at the end of an already long day. So I wanted to start the process of looking at it in this study session and continue it on to further study sessions. So not to hash everything out tonight, but maybe to just get ideas on the table for any updates that are requested, and then see if we have consensus on them to bring forward. So there were two that came as part of the request for study session items. And, oh yeah, yes, please. Thank you. We got copies just so people can look at the rules and procedures as is. Although we just looked at them. So one of the first requests was, and then I'll see if any of the council members have requests after these two, was to go back to the order of the meetings and to make public comment the very first order item. And on a thumbs up, as that was on as idea. I don't know if you want to just mention rationale behind it, and then we can just quickly talk about it. Not that we have to make a decision tonight, but just want to see where everyone's at.
Just the rationale behind it is that the public has, we're allowing public recognition. People work, they have families, they have complicated lives. The further down the agenda public recognition is, the more difficult it becomes for the public to come in and comment. That's it.
Makes sense. And I know when we talked about this before, since we have call to order, optional pledge, mayor's report, consent agenda, then public recognition. If I remember right, one of the concerns was that with consent agenda, we have staff waiting around in case anything gets pulled or we have any questions from the public on that consent agenda. And so by getting that done, lets them get home early. But I very much appreciate, public right away as well. If you folks want to say where they're at on whether they want to consider moving this or keep things as is.
So basically the concern is we don't want to wait for it to be too far down on. I think it's working well being after the consent agenda. And honestly, people have different kind of work schedules. So maybe being here right at 5 o'clock is harder for some folks than being here. 5:30, being here right at 5:30 might be harder than a few minutes later. Have we received any complaints about it being too far down on the schedule?
Not that I've seen.
Have you anybody personally received any complaints about that? I like that it's not at the end of the dang meeting. Okay, that's the way it used to be, right? And so that seemed very exclusive.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I think it's working out well. We could take public comment on how it's working at another meeting, but for now, I think I like it.
I think the only lens that I'm bringing that might be opposed to moving it is the fact that I commuted from Seattle like 5 days a week when I first moved over here. And so I wouldn't even, be off the ferry until like 6:30, sometimes 7. So I think as long as we're not getting any complaints, I'd keep it as it is.
Denise, any thoughts on? Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, it's something we can, oh, sorry, that's my bad for not pointing out the microphone.
I think the
So
mayor
for-
should talk more.
There you go. So to sum up, some of Councilmember Fry's district was good to have mayor's report up front and for the public and discussion there.
One
Okay,
more.
I
thing to-
I yield. All done.
All good. Good. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we're going to keep this hybrid option for the foreseeable future.
Yes, that is absolutely.
I
fine.
love
Yeah.
the equity of it. And also, and I don't know if we're going to get to emails and so on, but I love the fact that people can email and that those emails are put into our agenda packets as public comment as well. So as many ways as we can get feedback is great.
Perfect. Okay, then let's move on from that suggestion. And I was gonna bring up the other one, which was revisiting Rule 4. We talked about this a lot last year, and so this is it's a difficult subject, complex. It touches literally the department's so staff. So this is not to be solved tonight, but I wanted to get the conversation going for future study sessions. So let me just say where I'm at on this one, which is I think it's really important, and I've talked base with other people from other council members, different cities. It is absolutely important that each council member has an avenue to bring forward an item for discussion, right, on behalf of their constituents, to have a path to bring that up and get it heard. And we're of course balancing that with our as a whole council and city agenda for the year. With a limited time, we have sometimes staff time that items take up, and agendas that we're not here till 10 PM. But that avenue, I think, needs to exist. And as I see it, it's still a little nebulous onto what our consensus on how that goes. We have the written procedure right here, which has the wording. Actually, did everyone get a copy of what else I printed up? Hold on. Oh, it was the little fact sheet I put together. I might just have the one here. Sorry, that's okay. I sent it to, it's sent by email. But our current Rule 4 and our council rules and procedures has that consideration of any subject matter communication by the council may be initiated by the mayor or any council members. And then it goes on to, what's to be submitted. And as we talked about, it's a little broad in the language right now that, by the reading of it, anybody should be able to throw anything on the agenda, but that of course gets complicated. So what I did was went to the rules and procedures for councils, as many cities as I could find, as well as there's 2 articles linked that I sent out from MRSC that had some guidance. And they, MRSC basically had what I just summed up of, yep, people should have that right, but the meeting belongs to the group as a whole. We make a decision, collectively, and you got to take into account resources. So I think if folks get time to kind of look through the different cities here, and see what can be put on there. My consensus was, probably a lot of them were really broad. It's good to have that defined. But most of them did have a mechanism for any elected official to place it on, to place an item on an agenda. Sometimes they required at least 2 council members to want the same item. A lot of times they required, there's a certain amount of business days notice before it went on, which totally makes, sense in my opinion. Some had really complicated processes. So, I don't know, Anna, this is, something you pushed on. And so without taking the whole night, again, I don't want to be here all night tonight, but if you have a pitch, for maybe a specific proposal, and then we can all mentate on it, look at these other examples and come back to it another evening. Go for it.
Okay, so Rule 4.
Oop, okay.
Beg pardon.
Not mine.
So this seems to me like, let's just put in, we can do it by custom to start out with, see how it shakes out, then put it into the formal rules and procedures. What is that thing, you ask? That we put something on, that I, for example, put something on the agenda saying everyone should salute Anna as soon as she walks into the room, to pick a truly ridiculous agenda item, okay? In fact, that's just too ridiculous. An agenda item saying we will use the word counselor instead of council member, thus saving 17.83 minutes per year. Right, okay. That's right. And anybody who wants to ask me where I got those stats, I'll tell you, but I'm being brief here. So then we would put the item, I would put that on the agenda. I would have 3 minutes to pitch it. It would be an elevator pitch. At the end of that 3 minutes, council would say, I never want to hear about this again. I'm totally in love with this. It's remaking my world, or I need more information. I'm concerned that using counselor might cause confusion with counselor, like Attorney Finnell. Right? A 3-minute pitch. That's it. That's all I'm saying. But because 7 of us were elected to represent or appointed to represent our districts, I love the idea that Council President Coughlin and Vice President Chamberlain are voluntarily just going, we want everybody to be represented. I love that. All done.
When
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, if we want to add language, that's fine. The way I read this is the only way that the president can not allow things onto the agenda. They're brought forth upon an elected or appointed individual would be if the procedure of submitting the documentation isn't allowed. But if we want to codify, I think it's really smart from a transparency standpoint for what the public may want to be talked about and those who, you know, just getting a straw poll from council of who wants to be talking about an issue versus not. So that allows the polity to then put on pressure if they want to put on political pressure. And it also protects minority viewpoints, whatever those minority viewpoints, conservative, liberal, whatever are, if you get an unbalanced council. So I like that.
yeah,
Like the minority viewpoint that the mayor should be paid $42,000 a year. Yeah.
Jennifer.
And so I liked what we kind of were playing around with earlier in the year with having it and like there was an agenda item, right? We had that moment where we were talking about a certain topic during good of the order. Is that the process that you'd like to see, or do you want to see like an actual
Good question.
agenda item that has all the materials listed here in Rule 4?
Yeah, it's a good question to clarify. I mean, we have, briefings on agendable items, so it could go in there if you're making your pitch, or it could be codified as an actual bullet point under, so similar to, literally, I requested to put this in as a bullet point in the agenda, and it has my name on it. I want to talk about it. That could go under general council business as a line item. It's an option.
Can I clarify? So, you have written materials for your general council bullet point item. One member is asking to put it on. That's you. You control the agenda anyway, so you put your item on. And so you met all the criteria of Rule 4 by putting it as a bullet item in general council business, right?
I would say it's a little nebulous right now.
Okay.
The council president is not the ultimate control of the agenda. It shouldn't be, but we should have a
Yeah.
process that makes that transparent as how things get on the agenda. And then again, in a way that we're not here till 10 o'clock at night and that we move forward. Yeah.
And so, here's my idea is, like under good of the order, to have a straw poll as Counselor Dennehy was saying. If somebody has an agenda item they'd like to put on and there seems to be interest, we would take a straw poll and then decide from there in a public
A
forum.
lot of the different cities did have a mechanism like that where, kind of as Anna described, it was a pitch and then, it's with the majority council vote. And a lot of those did say, if it requires staff time, especially, majority council vote, whether to go forward with it or not. And that's where we would have to be considerate of, all right, is this in line with our current goals and agendas for the year? Is it something emergent that came up that, oh gosh, we should tackle this? And we kind of did that like with the ferry resolution, right? I kind of made a pitch, said, hey, if I write this, is this worth time? And it's going to take Attorney Finnell.
Nicely done.
Amount of time
sir.
to review, but it's not a huge ask. And so that's how I would envision it. And we just quickly hash that out and then, we take a vote if it's something to move forward, with specific actions.
Okay, so if we were to do that process, things we would need to be mindful of as council, you're not gonna be able to detail them out under Rule 4. But is, staff time, budget, goals and priorities,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, that's it.
I was just gonna add something like in the last couple of years, like things that I'm able to turn around really fast, if you think about it, are the things that don't have a budgetary impact. So we had an issue last year with the auditor and needing
Right.
to be, that was like, it was, Jeff called me, we have this issue, we need to change the code. It was on the next study session, then it was on, it had no impact on the budget. It was like a wording thing. And so things that are like that are definitely things that I can turn around. It's for me, when you have ideas that involve them or what their workload is or what their priorities are and all that, that's when it gets complicated because I can write the words. But like, I don't know, I can't do it in a vacuum. So then I have to talk to them and when I'm pointing to them, I mean, like.
The
BCC,
directors, yeah.
Public
Yeah,
Works
mayor
and
and
stuff like that. So,
administration.
just historically, like there have been ideas that council members have had that are, like Councilmember Dogs had the limiting, like to where we weren't gonna allow people to sell puppy mill dogs in the city. That had no budgetary impact. It was just putting something on the books. Same thing with the changing the auditor. We've had like other ones that are quicker. So those are definitely things that you can just come and talk to me and we can figure out if there's consensus and get them on. But it's whenever there's like a budget impact and things like that, come in and talk to me. I won't be able to like help you without bothering them is what I'm saying. So just putting that out there.
Perfect. So what I'd propose is, we can keep talking a little more, but, I'm hearing is limited to a couple minutes, probably one item per council member or counselor, 3 minutes, maybe I'll go, figure out the timing. And then, a certain number of business days to work with staff to make sure there's no impacts, especially if it doesn't require another staff time, but that way we just have it in it's listed. We know what's coming up to, we know, hey, Denise wants to talk about a park pitch, this, like that. Perfect. Okay. So that sounds good. I'll continue talking with staff and Attorney Fennell and bring a more solid proposal next study session. Get on the books. Okay. Were there any other rules and procedure updates that just to put on the front of our minds to talk about? I see Denise. Yes.
Public access to our meetings. So I know in our rules and procedures, it says our regular council meetings will be televised. And that's one thing, to televise them live and have people, interacting. I just think we need to have public access to recordings and as long as we're here, the video recordings too of our study sessions. Because we made a $500,000 decision in a recent study session. And I don't think there's any recording of that. Was that the
And-
one that we?
And that to clarify, I believe that was not intentional, that was a glitch.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
it
just
wasn't
wanted to make-
intentional.
Right.
No, it wasn't intentional, but I don't think we put the importance of, oh, it's just a study session. We don't make decisions there. And, we get asked about things that happen in study session. And I did hear, and I'm just going to share this. I did hear that there was word that we were playing up too much for the camera or something. And I just want to challenge people on that. I tried not to take it personally. But because I'm personally so involved in what I do, it's hard to do that. And I don't think we need to make a blanket rule. If somebody's hogging camera time, then we need to talk to the hog and take care of it that way and not make some blanket rule that we're not going to air the study sessions. So this is a meeting of the council. And public should have access to it, even if they aren't allowed to
And
participate.
just fact checking, we've been recording the audio for study sessions traditionally. That's been posted in public. But until recently, we haven't been doing video, but I believe we are now.
That is, that's correct. So we've been public,
Okay.
the audio recordings have been online. They've been online since
Right.
forever, actually. Even when using the old recorder. So the technology we have in this room, we've been using the Zoom format for audio recordings, but I believe there's a request to go ahead and produce the video feed. So we're just at the direction of council, what you'd like to do.
Weigh in. So I see 2 thumbs up there. When I see a thumb up.
Great
Jennifer,
point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so that's the one playing this way. We put up the video feed. I'm just kind of, we're looking at it. Yeah.
I want to play it for
There
the
we go.
cameras.
Yeah.
Mom,
No, it's,
she doesn't know how to find. She doesn't know how to-
yeah. You all, oh, God. Yeah, it was working that
by
Mm.
design.
back, yeah. No, I get it. It's a whole nother subconscious, but I look at it as, someone in the audience, would have the right to whip out their cell phone and record us, publicly, as far as my understanding goes. And so I get the, right, the play to the camera presentation, but I think we're all mature and good, yeah. So I'm also in favor of just, if we have the AV ability and we have Zoom, it helps, and then you can also read body language and see what we're doing and the hand motion, and it's, I think that you get it across a lot that way, communication wise. Sorry, Jennifer.
No, we're good. I don't have anything else to add to that. I have another question that I'm not necessarily seeing this in the rules and procedures.
Oh, sorry.
Want to
just
close
see-
out the last
okay.
item? Sure.
Yeah, close out. So I'm seeing consensus that we're good with video recording, so Director Riley will.
So,
continue
so
that.
one additional question, the Zoom codes are not been made public. Only reason that one meeting was made public because there was action in the study session. So previous council did not want them to be public. It was just for recording. So going forward, is that the direction we want to put public codes out that they can attend publicly for attendees?
That's a good point. So
Yep.
BCAT, of course, broadcasts our general meetings, not the study sessions.
Yeah, and they
So
would,
we
and they
can,
wouldn't need to. We'd
yeah.
just we'd be putting the Zoom codes out just like a normal Zoom meeting. They
Mhm.
just have not been put out into the public. It's only like invite only that one meeting
Right.
was available. So
Gotcha.
if that's the case, we'll put them out to the public. They're always invited, but the Zoom feed was not part of the study session. It was a recording function.
I don't have a problem with making it public at all.
I think it's a great idea.
Perfect. The
Okay.
only and I'm in support too. The only caveat I see is that if the day comes that we ever want to move study sessions back upstairs to the conference room, IT wise, we'll have to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, we're not supporting that room right now
Right.
to be able to do that, but it could happen.
Sounds good. Of course, we can always bring down the portable whiteboard down here if we want to jump to a whiteboard during a study session. So I like the whiteboard. Okay, so going forward for now, we'll put out the public Zoom code so folks can watch virtually just like they can in person. They will still not be able to participate during study sessions and give input, but they can watch, and the recordings will be posted.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll work with Lori and Christine.
All right. Thank you, Director Riley. Jennifer, you have another item on rules and procedures to
I'll
look
just
at?
make it quick, and it's something for us to think about for the future and get more clarity on. It's not necessarily in our rules and procedures unless I'm incorrect. I was skimming through just today, but I was looking for it earlier. But I mean, it could probably go under public comment. Is that, why don't we get all of our emails? I guess, is that not something that should be a rule and procedure that we should have open access to all the emails that are sent to city council?
So can I ask to table that discussion for another time, just because it's not necessarily, maybe I can tag up with you offline and see if there's a specific proposal to put forth.
Okay, I mean, is there anybody else that's interested in this in the future? If there's not a consensus, we can just drop it.
Yeah, not to stifle discussion, but
I didn't realize that we didn't get all of the
Well-
emails, and I'm appalled that we don't get all of the emails if they're addressed to city council. I know that you all are a filter, and a great filter, and take care of things and all of that. But if somebody's writing to city council, then city council should see the communication.
and I believe that has been the case.
Okay.
So if there's an email that went to the city council email address that said, dear council member Fry, and you think you didn't get that, let me know. And I can work with,
The city.
or if it's addressed to the entire city council. If somebody sends it to the entire city council, I believe that always comes to us.
It does not. There are emails that do not make it to us that might be considered spam, that maybe they're just considered superfluous and unnecessary, but and sometimes they don't come to us first. They are trafficked by our staff, right? In a certain way. And it feels like we're being handled. And maybe that's how not to compare myself to the president, but maybe that's how the president is treated as well, right? They're a temporary person, staff is there longer, like I get the concept behind it, but if it's coming to all city.council, I feel like that's something that we have, I can delete my spam, you know what I'm saying? If an email, like one that we got recently, is being forwarded to our mayor by our city staff before we receive it, I have an issue with that. So I guess, yeah, thank you.
Okay, loud and clear would be a complicated one though, because there's many, right, pros and cons of that. Quinn, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, if we're gonna continue that conversation, I'm in the dark on like what
Yeah,
things you're referencing. In my, what, 1.5 years on council, I feel like the only filtering that's been happening is like based on districts. You know, if, hey, this person has a property
Right.
issue, he's in District 4, Quinn should see this email so that person can do it. But I would love, if that is not the case, to see what that evidence is in order to.
that's my request as
continue.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Director Riley.
I just want to clarify, the filtering is not happening through our IT department. That
Correct,
does
yeah.
not happen. It's through.
No, and for anyone
The council
listening.
email is controlled by staff
Yeah.
and council, and then any direct email that your email account goes directly to you. So I just want to make sure no filtering from the administration side. I think it's an
Right,
obligation.
I think what folks are bringing up is our internal staff, so I would just request that you talk to me and I can work with our staff if there are any concerns, and you send to me any examples that you think things aren't being handled appropriately, and we work with staff to meet council's needs. Yes, Anna.
Thanks, Council President Jeff Coughlin. I think from what I understand, the current system was set up back in the infancy of email, when it was like, 56K modems. Am I totally showing my age here? Where email was difficult and cumbersome, and it was necessary to avoid setting up a rolling quorum. I totally get that. On the other hand, I feel like as an adult in 2023, just when something goes to city council, just send it out to city council. And really without heat, to just say that here's something that staff has been doing for years. And maybe they don't have to. Maybe they could do, something else other than like scanning through the email and forwarding them. The email can just come to us. If you don't want to receive mail from, I don't know, one group, then you just go put this in junk for me. And the emails will still come. I think all of us at this point in time, almost done, Quinn, we're able to handle email. That was not true 10 and 15 years ago when this system was set up. Hold on.
Respectfully, I feel like we're verging into
Yeah.
being pretty condescending and disrespectful to staff. I think there's and a city attorney, I've got the floor. City Attorney Fennell can speak to this. Fennell, sorry, can speak to this, but there's a lot of analysis that goes into determining where things go based on OPMA violations. So I don't want it to be boiled down to, we can automate this.
Right.
I would like to get all of the facts in front of us before we're making these conclusions that can be pretty disrespectful to at least in my experience, the great job that our support staff has been doing.
Yeah, let me echo that again. I've never seen, I'm impressed by staff and the volume of email that they're able to handle. And the speed at which they turn around things to us, and the fair and the equitable way they handle it. So I'll make sure there's absolutely no accusations of any wrongdoing like that. And there are complications here. So what I propose is that let me keep talking to staff. If you want something in writing as far as a policy goes of how they're handled, we could work on that. And in the meantime, if you have specific examples of things you think aren't being handled correctly, let me know. And move from there. Yeah, because it's a complicated topic in terms of making sure we don't have OPMA violations and making sure that citizens get timely responses to their inquiries.
I'm going to just jump ahead of
Well,
Vice President Chamberlain,
hold on,
just to
Jeff.
apologize to staff. If anyone thinks that I was being disrespectful, that was completely not my intent at all. That's it.
No, and I just want to echo that as well, because this is just the system that they've been operating under, right? And so my proposal was to have something in here that gives us some guidance that we can agree on on how we receive this communication so that it is to lighten the burden in a sense and not to have to operate in this old way of doing things because that's just how it's always been done. It's a lot of work that they're doing, and to have to like navigate who gets what, that's one extra thing. So my intent was not to, I feel like I needed to address that, is not to make accusations about staff and that they're doing something, you know, completely wrong. That's just the system they were given because there is no rule on it. So there should be a rule. That is all. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm all
I love my staff. You guys are wonderful. I really do.
Okay, Quinn, and then let's, I think.
Yeah,
move on.
sorry,
Or no,
I'm somebody that
we'll revisit
when
this for
I
sure.
have a voice for somebody that's not,
Yeah.
that doesn't have a voice at the table, I gotta stick up. It's more than just a rule. It's subject matter experts that have been doing this job for a very long time. So I want to hear everybody what issues are, and I guarantee you there's probably some very, at least in my experience, I guarantee you there's some good reasons behind it. But I would like to have some transparency around it. I just don't want to boil it down to some simple automation, which it feels like is happening right now.
Okay, concerns duly noted. We'll keep talking on that and we will come up with a plan, move forward, but to make sure that's transparent, everyone's on the same page on how emails are handled. We knew emails in government could be such a hot topic.
I have
All right.
another thing. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Coughlin, about
Procedures.
the box of files that you had stuffed in the closet in the back. I think we need to address that right now.
All right. Let's see, what do we got? Yes, so now we're, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Quick reminder, joint planning session is this Saturday at Gold Mountain Clubhouse. I think everybody's got, we got kennel breakfast, everyone's lunch orders are in, the agenda's out there. If anyone has any questions, just catch me individually. I try to make an effort to talk to the mayor and all the directors and folks to make sure everyone's clear on our path forward on that meeting. The morning will be in depth, the afternoon will be quick. I said that before, so. If you have any questions, let me know. And then with that, yes, we'll go to other general council business. If anybody has anything for the good of the order. And Quinn, go for it.
Just a quick announcement for the good of the order. I would like to congratulate President Jeff Coughlin for being named a 20 under 40 by Leadership Kitsap. And he is celebrating tomorrow at the reception. So very well earned. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Comments from the, never mind. Okay. Yes, compliment, yeah. Oh, okay, yes, for the record, I am 37. I'll be 38 in this August. While campaigning, somebody thought I was mid-50s, so that's okay. I got some really gray, you know, sometimes that works, doesn't, yeah. Full disclosure. All right, good of the order. Anna.
This is about as minor as I can get. Could we please have snacks that are not pork?
All right. We'll see if staff can buy non-pork snacks. All right. All right. Any other good of the order items? All right. All right, gavel's coming down. Reminder that the city council meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the first floor meeting chambers with a remote option. I will see you all next week, but that meeting is adjourned. No.